In this video, I'll be repairing the headlight wiring harness on a 1988 Porsche 944. The factory headlight wiring on the 944 hasn't held up very well with age, and in most cases it's now built up more resistance than when it was first installed during production, which reduces the voltage output. Because of the pop-up headlight design, the wiring also has to twist and flex as the lights move up and down, which causes fractures in the now hardened wire insulation, and as a result, it's fairly common for electrical shorts to develop in one or both of the headlight wiring harnesses. When troubleshooting a faulty headlight, the first thing you want to check is the central electrical panel, where we have a total of 4 fuses for the headlight circuits, 2 that are labeled as main beam, which are for the high beams, and 2 labeled as dipped beam for the low beams. If the fuses check out okay, the next items to inspect are the headlight bulb and the voltage at the connector. Once you've ruled out a burned headlight bulb, or if you're unable to confirm battery voltage at the connector, there's likely a fault in the wiring harness. This 944 is currently experiencing an issue with the passenger side headlight, where the fuse blows shortly after the lights are turned on, but when the fuse is replaced with the lights in an open position, the bulb stays lit. So that points to a defect in the wiring harness, where 2 or more wires may be damaged and short-circuiting as the harness moves with the headlight assembly. You can see when inspecting the length of wire behind each of the headlight assemblies that there are a few bends and flex points in the harness, and these just don't hold up well over time with the repetitive actuation of the headlights. So what we need to do is disconnect the wiring harness and dig in a little deeper. I've now got the passenger side wiring disconnected here, and we can see that it's crimped in a couple areas and a little twisted, and while everything looks intact on the surface, we'll need to cut and strip this rubber coating back to really see what's going on with the wiring inside. As we're cutting into the harness, we'll find there are 3 wires leading to the connector. The brown wire is the ground connection, the white wire is the high beam positive, and the yellow wire is the low beam positive. After cutting a bit further, the issue becomes pretty obvious, where we can see some missing insulation and exposed copper wiring on the white and yellow wires. What's happening here is these 2 wires are making contact as the headlight tilts upward, putting the low beam and high beam on the same circuit, and that's more than the 7.5 amp fuse can handle. So the next step is to either splice in some new wires or repair the existing ones before wrapping the harness back together. In this case, I'm just going to perform a simple repair on the wiring, where I've got some heat shrink tubing to cover the exposed sections of the wires, as well as to wrap the harness covering back together and seal things up. But to do so, I'll first need to depin this connector to slide the tubing into place. Each of these single round contacts has a slightly thicker circular ridge around the center to lock them into position, and they'll need to be pushed out using a contact removal tool. This one is a Deutsch terminal removal tool, numbered DR02, with an outer diameter of 4 millimeters and an inner diameter of 3.5 millimeters. You can see how the tool works by sliding over the end of the contact until it touches the circular ridge, where it can then be used to push the contact out of the rubber connector. These may require a bit of force while twisting and pressing the tool deeper into the connector to fully extract the contacts, but once the connector is removed from the harness, the new insulation and tubing can be installed with a heat gun. After installing the new insulation and the heat shrink tubing onto the harness, the 3 contacts can be reinstalled onto the rubber connector in the reverse of removal. The Deutsch pin tool has a notch cut into the tip that allows each wire to pass through and protrude from the back of the connector as the contacts are pushed into place. The front of the connector is labeled as 1, 2, and 3 for the contact orientation, where 1 is for the brown ground wire, 2 is for the positive yellow wire, and 3 is for the positive white wire. With all the contacts properly and fully inserted into the connector, the headlight wiring can be reconnected and tested. Now that the headlight wiring harness is repaired, the passenger side headlight is functioning once again. So I'm going to see how this holds up for a while, and if any other issues develop, I'll probably replace the entire length of the headlight harnesses with some new wire and a relay setup, maybe upgrade to some brighter H4 bulbs, but for now, it's back up and running.